Hey everyone, and welcome back to Ideanthro. We're in the suburbs of Auckland. We're on the north side of Auckland, is that fair? Yep. And Robin here, and I'll let you introduce yourself in a second, has been kind enough to take me out and show me some of the history of the rain gardens of Auckland, in particular the filter media mixes that have gone in. And this has taught me, or given me some new ideas, confirmed some existing ideas that I had about how we should probably be going about and improving upon the filter media mixing in rain gardens and fire retention systems, with a view to making a better environment for the plants to survive, making a better environment for treatment performance and the like. So this is where we're going to go. This is going to build on some of the stuff that I talked about in episode 143. I've really made that many episodes. But before we get into it, Robin, would you like to introduce yourself and a bit of context of your background and why this makes sense for us to be having a chat?
Right, so I have been working in Auckland in water sensor design from about 2005-06 when I joined forces with Dr. Elizabeth Fassman at the University of Auckland, who's a stormwater engineer.
Okay.
So I'm an ecologist and soil scientist, so we had the plant people, soil people working with the stormwater people to try and sort out bioretention, particularly green roofs to start with, and also some rain gardens in Auckland.
Okay. Cool. And so you've then been involved since that time and seen, so there's been quite a bit of an evolution in the filter media mixes used over that time.
Yes.
Okay.
And the various influences between the American influence, the Australian influence, and then how that's been translated here in New Zealand.
Yep. Okay, so let's talk through this and recognise that I will probably throw some photographs up over the video screen as we go here. Let's talk through from the beginning of the stuff that we've seen today, the earliest systems, and what characterised their filter media. So what would have been the earliest system that you've shown me today?
So the earliest system was put in at around about 2006-07. It was that upturned concrete structure that the engineers were making sure the water couldn't touch their road, and they were terrified of erosion and roots and things like that.
Okay.
They filled it up with what was then regarded as a TP10 compliant mix.
Okay.
TP10 is a specified you needed a sandy loam that had a minimum 12.5 millimeters per hour infiltration rate.
Right, okay.
Most people read that as trying to get to the 12.5 to 20 millimeters per hour, with the idea that that is draining down a 300 millimeter ponding depth within a day.
Okay.
When we looked at that, people made it. We're sitting on a very old area of New Zealand which has lots of very weathered soils. So the soils here are called ultic soils, ultimately weathered. They have between sort of 60 to 90% silt and clay. Okay. The way the locals decided to make a sandy loam was to get sandy sand from imported to Auckland and mix that with the local soils. Okay,
and what sorts of ratios? Like what percentages?
It could be 50-50.
Okay.
Would be a typical mix.
So that's a lot of fines.
That's 50% fines. And TP10 max set a maximum of 25% clay.
Okay. And did that, what about the organic matter contents?
That was never specified.
Okay. People knew that you needed organic matter to grow plants, so they generally add between 10, 20, 30% compost. By volume?
By volume.
Okay. And so what's the result? What have we seen happen with those types of systems in terms of how well they drain, how well the plants have grown in them over time?
So in most of those systems they've tended to slump, and you've tended to get drainage rates lowering over time.
So the organic matter has broken down over time, causing slumping, possibly some settling of the fines through the sands as well?
Probably mainly the settling of the fines.
Okay. Because there was no bridging. There was like coarse particles and fine particles and nothing in the centre. Okay.
So the organic component we came across some that were really high, 40%.
Okay.
By volume. But the first ones we looked at were quite clay rich and sandy, and there wasn't a large amount of organics.
Okay. And the plant survival, there were some plants in those, they weren't super lush, but they weren't barren, sandy desert site. They were fine.
They were sedges and big tree lilies and
okay. And so then the second set we went to, these were a little newer and much more lush.
Very
Is that
lush.
Right? Okay. Tell me about, roughly when do you think they went in, and what's their filter media spec like?
So they went in around 2009, 2010.
So we're talking 3-4 years later, something like that.
And they were put in with a mix that was around about 40% by volume compost.
Okay.
So very high volume compost that grew beautiful, beautiful plants.
Yep.
But
Yep.
but we saw some of the issues with it.
Yeah. And so before we get to those issues, what do you know about the inorganic fraction? Was it 40% compost with only sand? Was it 40% compost with lots of sand and lots of fines? What do you know about that?
So it was around about 30 to 40% local soils and 30 the residual sand.
Right. Okay.
So it may have been as low as 20% soil.
Yeah. So the first mix, it's still possibly missing some of the middle fraction. So it's still got it's got a bunch of sand and a bunch of fines. Possibly missing some of the middle fraction of the inorganics, maybe. Maybe not.
Too bad.
Yep. But then the main difference being lots and lots of organics. Okay.
Yeah.
So what have we seen? You've mentioned the plants grew gangbusters in them, look super lush. They're probably the lushest rain gardens I've ever seen.
Yeah.
What happened?
So one of the things that happened there was that the plants, they put in 6 or 7 different species.
Yep.
The plant that could respond mostly to those fantastic nutrient conditions took over.
Yep. Okay.
So we've now got only 1 or 2 plant species there.
Yep.
But it looks great.
Yep. And then the soil-wise, we saw. What do we think? Was it slumped? Like there was a trench. It's settled in the middle of those systems, so they've slumped in their own right, which might be that might be the organics breaking down and causing that slumping. Okay. Then we looked at those, and then lastly we went to a much newer system down here, which was
2 or 3 years.
Yep. Yeah. And it was, rather than being like a rain garden in the street, this is a bigger, what you described as like an Australian style, it's a bigger via retention system. It's what I might call a precinct scale system, where the plants they seemed reasonably happy in there, not as lush, but reasonably happy. What was the media like in those ones?
There the sand content had come up a long way,
yep.
and the organic content had been dropped to, I think, between about 20-30%. Maybe 20%.
Yeah, so quite similar. Hello.
Hello.
We've met ourselves a friend in this video. Right, so it's closer.
Remove the clay content largely. Clay and silt content.
So it's closer to what might be an Australian mix, because the current what we're seeing a lot of the time is I think the inorganic fraction of what we just saw in that is really probably quite like what we'd see in an Australian mix. But it's probably got at the higher end of the organic content of what we're likely to see, because the FORB spec, which has become the CRC Biofilters Guideline spec, the last time I checked anyway, would allow you anywhere from 0 to 5% organic matter, and because organic matter costs money, we often see that at the lower end of things, whereas the 30% by volume that you're talking about is probably kind of similar to 5% by mass, which is how I'm talking about it.
Yeah. The interesting thing is that in New Zealand, sand is cheaper than organic matter.
Yes.
So actually, the companies save money by increasing sand and decreasing the organic matter content.
Yeah, which is often the same. Adding those organics adds a bunch of cost. So what this has got me thinking, this has got me then thinking about, okay, in the last episode, in the fine balance episode, I just managed to introduce myself to the concept of organomineral complexes, and I've been thinking about this stuff which I've been talking about with Paul Dubowski at BMTWBM about, okay, we think we need to get, there's a minimum content of organic matter that we need to get into these systems if they're going to be healthy. The fact that we can put in a roughly FORB compliant spec that has very little organic matter seems very troubling, and what I've seen today would seem to back that up. But the question that I was then grappling with is, okay, how much is acceptable, and what do we put it through the whole filter media mix? Do we just blend it into the top? Will it stick around if there's no fines in there? And you've added some knowledge, at least from me, to that mix. So in that last episode, I was kind of coming to the point where I was like, okay, let's blend through a fair whack of organic matter, blend it through the whole mix, but make sure there's some fines in it, because fines can, in some circumstances, help that organic matter stick around. Let's talk about what's likely to happen if we put heaps of organic matter into a system. What's likely to happen to that over time if we go down that extreme? What, from a soil science point of view?
From a soil science point of view, the organics will be oxidized, and they'll they'll disappear.
Okay, if there's too much to be
If there's
useful.
too much. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So the plants and the plant roots and the bacteria and the fungi in the soil put in organic matter.
Yep.
That's a cycle.
Yep.
It can sustain a certain level depending on the type of system.
Yep.
In a bioretention system here, they're in perfect conditions. They get a lot of regular moisture, so they can support quite high organic matter levels. The plants are growing nearly all the time here.
Okay, so so the more moist the system, like a rainforest,
Yep.
would support higher organic matter contents than a drier
Certainly
system.
in the root zone.
Yep.
If you go below the root zone, then you're going to be losing the organic matter.
Yeah, simply because
There's
the
no
plants,
inputs.
the plants are adding to the surface layer, which is why when I've gone back and looked at older, like Hoyland Street bioretention system, roughly episode 110-ish, something like that, it's 15 years later, made this nice, beautiful soil in the top 200 mils. You dig down below that, it looks much like a normal filter media mix below it. Okay, what about the role of fines? What happens in a soil if we just have a really sandy mix and add organics to it, versus if we have a sandy mix with some fines in, a mix that has some fines in it and we add organics to it? How's that likely to change the behaviour of the organics over time?
So the fines help in lots of different ways. So they can help in the biochemistry side of things,
Okay.
particularly if they've got iron and aluminium mineralogy.
Okay.
So it depends on the type of fines.
Okay.
So here we talked about volcanic clays and silts versus the North Shore marine silts.
Okay. Yep.
Whereas the volcanic silts are much like when you were talking with Bill Lord from Bill Hunt over in the US. They've got their high red mud.
Yeah, and this would be, in a southeast Queensland context, this would be like going out to the Redlands, near to the Bay area, those sorts of red soils.
So they hold iron, aluminium, phosphate.
Yeah.
They'll help with metals, and they also help complex organic matter. So we can get a higher level of organic matter that's stable.
Yep.
When we've got that sort of fine.
Can you talk to me a little bit about exactly what's going on there when the fines are helping the organic matter stick around? Because in this last episode that I referred to, I had just realised that was because my soil science is not strong, to be honest. I just realised that was a potential thing that was going on, but I didn't understand physically or chemically how that occurred. So can you talk a little bit about what are fines actually doing to make it more likely that organic matter will stick around?
They've got charge in surface area.
Yep.
Okay, and sands don't have a charge, and they have very low surface area.
Yep.
That's how they link it.
Yeah.
They can do chemically as well, and they add aluminium, they can get into the lattice layers of the clays and things.
Okay.
Can I get my book out?
Right.
I'll send you an email.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we absolutely can. Okay, so where this so where this is adding up to me is, I think where I'm settling towards is something along the lines of adding organic matter throughout the profile, like large amounts. Obviously, you probably want to have some right throughout the profile, but adding large amounts of organic matter right throughout the profile doesn't seem like a particularly sensible solution. It's not really going to be beneficial to the plants or mimic a natural ecosystem anyway.
Yeah, it's also really bad for water quality.
Yes, because it's highly likely to leach.
They leach, and those complexes that the organic matter forms with metals and things like that will come out. And then if you've got a green waste that's high in nitrogen and phosphorus, you'll leach nitrogen and phosphorus when it breaks down.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so you really don't want high levels of organic matter.
Yep.
At all, which is where the US has come to.
Yes.
They're going, we're getting real issues.
But we know that we need some, because plants, clearly from the sites we saw today, the plants are doing better when there's organic matter in there. But in a natural system, because it's really only cycling through the top, that's why they'd be used to finding it. So there's not really any point to put much organic matter at all low in the filter media, maybe a little, but if I was coming at this from an Australian perspective, and I'm like, all our systems are way too devoid of it, I'd be wanting to add it into the top. But there might also, but if the media that we're putting in is just really purely straight sandy, like we sometimes do, and that doesn't necessarily comply with the form spec, there's some procurement stuff that's dodgy here, then we'd also want to make sure, if we want that want to form some of those organomineral complexes, that there are some finer particles in the media, not heaps, not like we're not talking about 20%, but a few percent, perhaps, for that to stick around. Okay.
And your organic matter also helps you with your water supply, plant available water.
Yep.
Because you don't have pumice.
Yep. Yeah, because you mentioned there's something about your particular sands
And
that they hold more water than a sand normally would.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So your sands might hold 3% plant available water.
Yep.
Which is like nothing.
Yep.
Ours might hold 20%, pumice sands 20%.
Yeah, which is substantial.
Yeah. And when you have organic matter, that helps hold your plant available water too. And I think your plants get stressed by water and by nutrient.
Yeah, which is exactly where Paul Dubowski and I, when we first started talking about this, where we came into it. It was the plants are dying. Some are being sprayed by herbicide. We think the others are drought stressed. That's exactly where we initially came to this talking through. And I should recognise here that Paul arrived at this let's only ameliorate the top idea as a potential preference of his quite a long time ago, and this is me catching up, I think, to his way of thinking here. So. The one other thing I want to touch on here is something that I've talked to the filter media suppliers in Australia about. We think we might be observing, but not 100%. And that's the fact that, so the good suppliers will supply a media that's got some organics in it. It might be like 3% by mass, but it's some. But of course, because one thing we're really good at is protecting these systems from sediment from construction sites, we end up laying, the filter media gets installed, we end up laying geofabric, a little bit of topsoil perhaps, and some turf over the top of that, and then leaving systems protected for like at least a year, but sometimes 2, 3 more years while the house building is going on. And we've surmised or hypothesized that by the time we come back and remove the turf and the geofabric, that we might have, because we kind of isolated the plants, which in this case is turf, which is what's inputting more new organic matter to the system, that we might be just losing what organic matter the supplier put in the first instance out the bottom, but the plants aren't adding any new stuff in. What's your thought on, do you reckon that's likely from your point of view? I know you haven't seen our systems that are getting protected like that, but what's your gut feeling on that?
If your roots and your turf are physically separated from the organic matter that you've stuck underneath, then they can't help sustain it. And if you have labile organic matter that's quite young and fresh,
easily,
it's going to be leached, so you'll get that initial flush anyway.
And would that be reasonable? Like if it was 3% that was moderately labile, like would that be a 3% by mass? Would that be reasonable that amount could leach out in the case of a year or two? Do you reckon?
You wouldn't lose all of it. It's sort of like a decreasing curve.
Oh yeah, like it adds some totes, so you could lose a bit quickly and then it would just taper off.
And the more that you have in there, the more you lose to start with, but it becomes irreducible.
Okay.
The other thing is if you're going through lots of wetting and drying cycles, that's what really starts losing organic matter. And that's what bioretentions do, right?
Right. Okay, what
so you're doing
just
a lot of
remind
wetting
me,
and drying.
What is it about the wetting and drying that causes that in particular?
It's getting those microorganisms to produce, to be active, then die, then be active, then die.
Why is that, like
in the roots as well?
Why does that result in more being lost? Would it result in more being lost compared to if it was just moderately wet the whole time? What's the difference between?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. In a pasture situation, you notice the autumn flush, right?
Okay.
So the soil organisms have been breaking down and operating over summer, but there's been no rain to leach out what they've been producing. Their bodies have been dying, but not being decayed and broken up.
Okay.
In that autumn flush, you get the he's back again.
Hello. How are you?
In that autumn flush, you all that becomes mobilised with the water.
Okay.
And then available to plants, to the plant roots.
Right. Okay.
And in bioretention, you're doing that all the time, I think.
Yeah.
We see it mostly on living roofs because they're really going through very short-term, very fast wet dry cycles.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I just
Okay. So this is going back to, it seems very reasonable that if we had a separation during the protection phase between the plant roots and like the thatch that the turf is kind of creating.
That you would lose organic matter.
Yeah,
but you could test for it pretty easily, eh?
Yeah, yeah, and there's been a little bit of that done that seems to support this. So where I think this has got to me, I'm going to try and sum up where this has got to me at the end of this, and call me if it's...
Take it off, amend the top.
Essentially this is it. I think I'm at a stage of, you know, the particle size distribution in a Forbes spec media seems pretty okay, but at the end of the protection phase, yeah, need to remove the protection, ameliorate the top layer at that point, and get in there and mulch the surface and plant as we normally would, and that seems like that would make quite a difference. So cool. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to share for this video before we go?
I know we can do another one on mulch at some point.
Sweet. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for the time. Thank you for the chat, as we've had many dogs and families and the like coming past. But let's leave it there. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.